Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Hamza Godfrey, Hamza Brian Godfrey. My situation was being young at the time of coming to Islam, 18, 19. I actually was unfortunately boyfriend, girlfriend with a Muslimah, and unfortunately they weren't practicing, but the bottom line for me to marry her was I had to be Muslim. We ended up breaking apart as a result of too much trouble from her parents, pressuring me to be Muslim to marry her, and I didn't see it to be right because they weren't practicing, so if they're not, why should I? But then over that 1 year break, or after being separated from her, quite innocently I come into Islam because an associate of mine was hassling me as such to go to church. He was a born-again Christian, and I went really just to get him off my back, to get the pressure off myself. There was a brother there who was there doing dawah, and alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his ways, he put me in the car with him on the way back home, and the drive home took about an hour. And just the questioning from this brother, just the concept I had of Islam, which was basically negative before, going by the media, was totally false. And what I thought I knew of my own religion was extremely minimal, was yet again false. And I was just surprised by, really in a sense, what religion is. And over a period of a year or so, just slowly learning bit by bit on a weekly basis, I alhamdulillah gained a bit of knowledge, and a year or so later, year and a half later, I got to the point where I had to take Shahada and finally accept Islam. Well, after alhamdulillah of accepting Islam, I'd maintained minimal contact with this girl because we lived so close and we would see each other sometimes out innocently at a shop or something. After accepting Islam, alhamdulillah, I went back to the family, and alhamdulillah, of accepting Islam by choice, by being the truth, not because to marry her or for that family in any way whatsoever. I said to him, I'm Muslim now, alhamdulillah, and inshallah we'll get married the proper way, Islamic way, what Islam decrees is the way it should be done. And unfortunately I had trouble. She would visit. If no one was home at my place, I'd have to explain to her, I can't let you in, which was a bit upsetting for her because really unfortunately out of lack of knowledge, and this being strange to her, she initially found it hard to deal with. Other minor things such as the dress code was a bit of a problem. Unfortunately it comes back to lack of knowledge and understanding, really knowing what the religion was for them. So therefore this seems so strange to her, and I guess to the family in a sense. We had actually, before we broke up, got engaged, which was, looking back now, had nothing, was extremely un-Islamic, unfortunately. So now by coming back and wanting to do it the correct way as best as I knew back then at the time, it was just totally different to them, and this was very hard for them to grasp. So we were only together for a very short period of time, but as of too much trouble with little problems such as her coming out when no one was there and being frustrated because I couldn't let her in, dress code, little things, me just wanting to gain some knowledge, just learn, just start learning how to pray, you know, getting used to dressing somewhat properly, was a battle. And after a certain period of time, while we're trying to arrange the wedding, I got to the stage where I just had to openly say, before you ask me, just ask, does Islam allow this? And if Islam allows this, then inshallah I won't have a problem with it. But if Islam doesn't allow it, then you don't need to ask me because that is what we have to follow. So it's a no, simple as that. This got rather frustrating because unfortunately a lot of questions that were being asked received a no answer, but they couldn't understand why, and maybe they thought it was a bit extreme. And so it was quite frustrating to deal with, and ultimately it got to the point where I had to call it off, unfortunately, because it was just an uphill battle. It was just an uphill battle for it to be done correct. I wanted segregation. They were giving all of the reasons why we shouldn't do segregation. Music wasn't too much of a battle. They wanted music, but I said no music. I wanted to do the signing of the papers at the masjid. So the problem with the music wasn't too much of a battle. We overcome that, but the problem with segregation was a challenge because they would have liked music. Segregation, they made excuses or reasons why not to do it. It's too difficult. Nobody really does it these days. It's not really necessary, and so forth. Minor things like this. I wanted to do the signing of the papers at the masjid in order for my family, being non-Muslim, this would really be the only opportunity that I could see them coming to a masjid and to seeing what the mosque is inside. They might be surprised, but in itself would be a form of dawah. And then after that, we could go back to their place and celebrate. But their tradition has it where it's all done at their place, and that was an uphill battle trying to obtain that. And ultimately, it wasn't going to be like that. So ultimately, we didn't get married. Generally, my lifestyle was probably just regular, nothing too exciting. Monday to Friday, work, then back home, nothing out of too much of the ordinary. Come the weekend, basically, I'd be involved in going to nightclubs, taking drugs, selling drugs, alcohol, nightclubs, women. Not that I'm trying to portray that I was a playboy as such, but I was just young and totally misguided looking back now. And that was basically just a regular routine, basically with no direction and just wasting my time in a sense. Coming into Islam, alhamdulillah, it's like having no directions and needing a destination to go, and coming to a roundabout and all the roads look the same, but you're told which road to take. Even though there's no signage, there's a road of which to take, and you know, regardless of what that road will be like, that will get you to the destination. And that's exactly what Islam has done for me. Alhamdulillah, it is now giving me direction, purpose, a sense, I guess, of fulfillment, and regardless of what's ahead, I know, alhamdulillah, Islam is the only way to go, alhamdulillah. No, not really, alhamdulillah. My parents, family being understanding, I guess with the Australian culture, my parents not being religious, there is tolerance, and I've never really felt any no negativity towards my choice of accepting Islam. Initially, I guess they looked at it as a phase I was going through, that was mentioned. I wouldn't say negativity in the sense of them saying, this is wrong, what are you doing, you can't do this, don't bring it here, don't involve us. But negativity in the sense of some slight arrogance perhaps on certain members when it comes to explaining certain aspects of Islam, because the only real form of advertisement, I guess you could say, or portrayal of Islam in this country is just extremely negative and just straight out false and based on absolute lies. So therefore it's hard when trying to explain to them, for example, the treatment of women, which unfortunately the Muslims themselves play a major part in why we have this perception of it being negative. Regardless of what they tell them, what they're seeing out there in a lot of the cases, especially by the media, it just backs up their theory that it's bad and we treat them badly, which is just complete rubbish and lies. So in order to explain to them, it's actions speak louder than words. So now I'm at the point where we were just trying to learn about Islam and to work on my character, and inshallah just by my actions and how I treat my wife, children, alhamdulillah, and I react with my family being non-Muslim, inshallah that will dispel the myth that we men are oppressive to our women and violent perhaps, and all these lies and misconceptions about Islam. Inshallah, over time they will see the truth and dispel that myth, inshallah. For me, it's not a situation trying to convince them to be Muslim. It's really just trying to present Islam for what Islam is, And inshallah, all I can do is leave it to Allah Azza wa Jal, and He will open their heart to the truth for it being the truth. As simple as that for me. As much as, of course, I would love them to accept Islam because it is the truth, I'm limited. The Prophet ﷺ, his uncle didn't accept Islam, and being the Prophet himself, if that wasn't enough for his uncle, you know, I have even less chance, I guess, of bringing my parents into Islam. I have to have more reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring to Islam. All I can do is give them the key, and inshallah they will open the door and come into Islam. And that's going to take time and patience, and patience is what I'm lacking. So inshallah I make dua often enough, and Allah will increase me in patience and to open their heart to the truth for being the truth. And inshallah slowly over time we'll show interest, which alhamdulillah there's interest there, and you know, slowly they will come to see Islam for the true Islam, for what Islam really is, and alhamdulillah then ultimately take shahada. There's no way that it could be perceived, that I could perceive it myself, that I've made a mistake coming to Islam. If I see some negativity about Islam, it's not Islam that is negative, it is but the portrayal of Islam that is negative. Unfortunately, with the non-Muslims, it's easy for them to cast a spell, but cast a perception of Islam, because generally when a Muslim is out in public, they're obviously Muslim, dress code, especially with the women, and with the man, if he's dressed in the sunnahs, they're obviously Muslim. The identity is very clear. So when something happens, if it be negative, straight away it's associated with Islam, even though it could be totally free from Islam. But with the Christians, there's no obvious identity that they are Christian or Catholic or whatever it may be. So when there's negative, there's not an association with Catholicism, Christianity, or whatever it may be. So there's no way. That's what we have to try and dispel, and that's where the Muslims need to check themselves and be aware that when they're out there looking Muslim, showing that there's Muslims and the following the religion of Islam, they need to be very careful what they do. They need to sometimes think twice about what they're going to do, because the person to the right or person to the left will see and unfortunately just automatically say, well, that must be Islam, which is majority of the cases not the situation at all. So for a Muslim today coming to Islam, alhamdulillah, they're coming to Islam in great numbers. It's hard for them, admittedly, because of the perception of Islam, but I think these days people are fed up with being shown things on just being, for lack of better words, brainwashed by the media, if that's not an appropriate word, about what Islam is, about what anything is. And people today really want to know the truth of what seeing is believing. This is what we're getting told. And when people are actually taking that step beyond the media to see for themselves, they see the truth. And alhamdulillah, I guess this is one of the major contributing factors why Islam is the world's fastest growing religion. No hesitation whatsoever. When I come into Islam, alhamdulillah, I come into Islam because I saw it to be truly the way of life that our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has decreed for us, that He has given us guidance, that He has set for us. I didn't come into Islam back then because it suited me at the time, far from it. At the time when I was coming to Islam, as I said before, I was involved with drugs, alcohol, nightclub. Generally I was so un-Islamic, it's not funny. And coming into Islam then was difficult because it was easy to know that what I was doing wrong, okay, I had to stop it, but stopping it was just another step. And that was probably what was harder than learning to stop it and why to stop it. It wasn't because it suited me whatsoever, it was a matter of choice. And today it'd be the same thing. If I was to come into Islam today, it wouldn't be because it suits me. You know, people are talking good about Islam, or the Muslims seem to be doing good things, maybe it's good to be Muslim. It was truly because it is the truth, and at the end of the day, I have no choice. It's up to our Creator. If my parents were practicing Islam and I was born into an Islamic family, no problem. It'd be easier for me, because coming to Islam now, not only do I have to come into a neutral position by stopping simple things as Christmas and Easter, birthdays perhaps, or definitely, and the non-Islamic ways, As being born into a Muslim family, even if the children are practicing, they still have basics. They know about Eid, they know about fasting, they know that even if they don't pray, they know there's 5 daily prayers. These basics they know even if they don't practice. Whereas for me, I had to learn about them, learn why to do them, why to stop these other things that I was doing. So there's time where I've got to come neutral, if I could, to put it like that. It's harder for the people born into Islam because they're raised, I guess, with them just thinking that Islam is right without a choice. They're just told that is the way it is, and if they don't know about the other religion, how could they know that what they're doing with total certainty that what they're doing is right? There's always a perception of maybe it's wrong, and this is where some children who aren't practicing, with the parents who aren't practicing, they get caught out, because when people start knocking on their doors or whatever it may be and ask them questions, if they don't know the answers or don't know why they need to pray, why they need to fast, the benefits of fasting, the benefits of praying, then it's easy for them for the shaitan to get to them and to say maybe Islam isn't right. And perhaps that is half the problem with a lot of the Muslims today. So by choosing Islam, I've done it willingly and knowing that it is right, because I know about the other religions, how they're wrong, so I know how Islam is right, why it is right, and it gives me more iman, inshallah. It's hard to say what I would rather, but the advantage to choosing to be Muslim is that I'm open to the truth. I've not just been taught one, if I could say, form of Islam, unfortunately, by my parents. And then when someone comes to me and says, oh look, this what you're actually doing isn't quite right, I would probably take an arrogant stand. Well, my father taught me that it must be right. The advantage I have is that whoever comes to me and says, this is Islam, this is how you do any form of worshipping, then if there's proof for it and it's authentic, I accept it, regardless of who it comes from. And yet again, regardless of who it comes from, if they come to me and say, look, this is how you should do it, but there's no authentic proof for why I should do it and for what they're claiming, then I'll leave it. That's as easy as that. So I guess that in a sense would be the advantage for choosing Islam, and that would be the battle for people who are born into Islam, because if they've been taught innocently something that isn't quite in accordance with the Sunnah, then it's going to be hard for them to step away from that and to implement the correct way on how to do something, because then the father might feel disrespected perhaps, or that his son has been arrogant or daughter's been arrogant, and it might be a bit more of a battle for the child in that sense. Where for me, choosing Islam, explaining to my parents what Islam really is, the frustration is more just when will they take Shahada, inshallah. At the end of the day, dawah comes down to knowledge. And not only knowledge but also experience, because you can have 10 people saying the same thing to a non-Muslim, but just the way that one person says it and comes across to that person with humbleness perhaps, or whichever way, that is what might get that person to accept Islam. And knowledge is unfortunately what I'm lacking. So therefore, in that sense, it's frustrating and harder to talk to non-Muslims, because if I can't give them the answer that they need, then it doesn't matter if I was Christian before, Catholic before, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever. If I can't satisfy that question that they're asking about Islam and give the correct answer, then that's definitely going to bring them into Islam. Because of the perception of Islam being negative, if when they ask, how come you men treat your women badly, if I can't explain to them the proper way and how the man should treat his wife, then they're going to walk away being in exactly the same position, whether I'm born Muslim or even though I've come into Islam. That would probably be irrelevant to that person. It all comes down to knowledge and giving them the correct answer and experience on how to deal with people on giving dawah, and inshallah people coming into Islam. I think the true character of a Muslim alone would probably be an amazing effect on people, on the non-Muslims, and that would be the advantage to being born Muslim, I guess, or raised by good parents, alhamdulillah. But being a revert, I can't see how that would really make too much effect. I guess in a sense it breaks the ice when it comes to talking to them, because we don't just talk about religion. We can talk about anything and I can somehow work perhaps religion into it. But as far as them wanting to accept Islam, the stuff that I was doing back then, we were doing it because we didn't see anything wrong with it back then. Unless they thought, look, this is wrong, but I'm doing it anyway, and I was to leave it, I guess from that angle it might help with them asking me about Islam, because they would perceive what we were doing was wrong. But at the time, we weren't perceiving what we were doing was wrong. So just because I'm leaving it, I can't see how that's going to bring someone to say, well, maybe Islam is right, because they don't think what they're doing is wrong. But as far as talking to them now, alhamdulillah, it breaks the ice because we can communicate and just talk about general things, and then inshallah I can try and get the conversation towards religion and Islam and whatnot. Yeah, I never, from my family, I didn't really get any negative phone calls as such or anything verbal. Nothing is really different too much. It's just a matter of me trying to explain to them that we can't believe everything that we see on the media. And at the end of the day, the media are non-Muslim. If they want to know truly about Islam, they're better off getting it from someone who is inside Islam. And they understand this, so it's just a matter of constantly explaining to them what's correct, what's incorrect, being patient, and pointing out the faults with the media. They say this, but in other areas they say this, and it's not reliable. So therefore, by coming from the Islamic perspective and being persistent in the truth, over time, that is, inshallah, what will show up to be the honesty and the character of the Muslims, the teaching of Islam, what's wrong, what's right, and over time, by persevering, truth will totally abolish falsehood. I have no doubt about that. So it's just patience and time, inshallah, and hopefully that'll do the job. Talking to the Muslims of the world, first I would be talking to myself, would be knowledge. We all need knowledge, and we need to double check the things that we have learnt, because perhaps innocently, who has taught us some things has taught us something incorrect, and that quite innocently. I'm not saying I did it on purpose, but that's what they were taught that should be done. And so we need to double check some things, whether it be to do with, just starting with the obliterates, the fasting, the prayers and whatnot. We need to just make sure how we're doing the basics is correct. And then once we've established the basics, just slowly, we can't all be a sheikh overnight, and no one can be a sheikh overnight. It takes time, and it's a battle, it's a struggle, and that's no problem. We just have to do what we can, as we can, and inshallah we'll make dua, Allah Azza wa Jalla to increase us with knowledge and with iman, and just be patient, and time, we just better ourselves. And we set goals for ourselves. 6 months from now, I want to be doing this more, I want to implement this sunnah, or I want to stop doing this which is haram or makruh or whatever it may be, and just better ourselves as a person, and just ask Allah to make us a good example to the Muslims and to the non-Muslims. And inshallah, being general, hopefully that'll make a big difference.